I buried the man I thought I knew better than anyone. But the secrets he left behind, they changed everything. Let me take you through what happened. And if this story reaches your heart, I hope you'll consider sharing it, liking it, and subscribing to the channel so more people can hear it too. My husband, Daniel, died just 10 days ago. It was a sudden accident. He fell from a ladder at one of his job sites. One minute we were planning our weekend. The next, I was picking out his casket. The funeral was quiet, small. Just close family and a few friends. I tried to stay strong, but inside I was breaking. After the burial, we all gathered at the house for the reception. That's when I first heard them. Two of Daniel's co-workers whispering near the kitchen. One of them said, "You think she'll go to the farmhouse now?" The other replied, "Doubt it. He always told her to stay away." Farmhouse? I'd never heard of any farmhouse. Daniel and I had been married for 7 years. Lived together, ate together, shared everything, or so I thought. My mind raced. Maybe it was just an old family place? Maybe he forgot to mention it? But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. That night, I found the address tucked away in one of his old notebooks in the garage. No name on it, just a location. 2 hours outside the city. Remote. The kind of place you only go if you mean to disappear. I drove out the next morning. I needed to know. When I got there, my heart started pounding. It wasn't some rundown cabin in the woods. It was a well-kept little farmhouse. Blue shutters, a small garden, a red truck parked out back. Someone had been here. Recently. I used the spare key I'd found taped under his old toolbox. The door creaked open, and what I saw made me freeze. The kitchen was spotless. Clean dishes. A half-full coffee pot. A child's drawing pinned to the fridge, to Daddy. The living room had soft blankets, toys, even fresh flowers in a vase. This wasn't just a hideaway. It was a home. But the worst part came when I walked into the bedroom. There were women's clothes in the closet. Not mine. Stylish, young, nothing I'd ever wear. On the nightstand was a photo of Daniel, holding a boy who looked no older than 5. The child had Daniel's eyes. And standing next to them was a woman I had never seen in my life. That's when someone knocked on the door. An older man stood on the porch. "Maya," he said, squinting at me. When I told him I was Daniel's wife, his face went pale. "You mean you didn't know?" "No, I didn't. But now I had to find out everything." I stepped deeper into the farmhouse, my hands shaking and my breath short. The smell of fresh coffee still lingered in the air, like someone had just left minutes ago. But this place, it didn't belong to me. It wasn't a weekend cabin or an old storage space. It was lived in, warm, personal, and none of it had anything to do with me. On the mantel above the fireplace were picture frames. I walked over, already dreading what I might see. And there he was, Daniel, smiling, holding a little boy in his arms. A woman stood beside them, her hand gently resting on Daniel's shoulder like she'd done it 1,000 times before. The boy couldn't have been more than 5, maybe 6, but what hit me hardest were his eyes. My knees nearly gave out. They were Daniel's, same color, same shape, even the same crooked little squint when he smiled. I picked up one of the photos. Daniel looked so happy, so natural, like this was his real life, like we had been the secret. I forced myself to keep moving, though every step felt heavier. The bedroom door creaked as I pushed it open. The bed was neatly made, but there were signs of recent use. A hairbrush on the dresser. A soft pink sweater tossed over the chair. Clothes filled the closet, dresses, jeans, heels. Young, stylish, nothing I would ever wear. Nothing Daniel ever bought for me. None of it was mine. I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at a pair of gold earrings left on the nightstand. My thoughts were spinning so fast I couldn't focus. How long had this been going on? How many birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays had been shared between him and whoever she was? Then came the knock. It startled me. I wiped my eyes quickly and walked to the door. An older man stood there, dusty boots, sun-wrinkled skin, and a kind but confused look on his face. "Maya?" he asked, tipping his cap. I froze. "I'm not Maya. I'm Sarah, Daniel Dawson's wife." His smile disappeared. For a long second, he just stared at me, eyes full of something I couldn't quite read. Shock, pity, guilt? "You mean," he started, voice low and unsure. "You didn't know?" I swallowed hard. "Know what?" He shook his head slowly and looked down at the porch. "I shouldn't have assumed. Maya's usually here with the boy. Thought maybe you were her sister or something." I couldn't speak. My mind was screaming, but no words came out. He finally looked back at me, eyes full of sadness. "You might want to sit down, ma'am. There's a lot you probably don't know." And he was right. I didn't know anything. Not about the woman. Not about the child. Not even about the man I thought I had buried. Not really. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that boy's face. His eyes. Daniel's eyes. I needed answers, and there was only one person who could give them to me, the woman from the photos. Maya. It didn't take long to find her. A neighbor, the same old man who had called me Maya, gave me her full name. Maya Green. I searched online and found a local address not far from the farmhouse. My hands trembled as I pulled up in front of a small house with toys scattered on the porch and a bright red tricycle parked beside the steps. I knocked. A moment later, she opened the door. She was younger than me, late 20s maybe. Long dark hair, tired eyes, holding a towel in one hand like I'd caught her in the middle of cleaning or bathing her son. She looked surprised, then confused. "Yes," she asked cautiously. I took a deep breath. "I'm Sarah Dawson, Daniel's wife." Her face went pale. "No," she said immediately. "That's not possible. Daniel told me you were dead." The words felt like a slap. "Well, I'm not. I was married to him for 7 years. We buried him last week." She looked shaken, stepping back as if she needed air. He told me you died in a car accident. Years ago. And you believed that?" She didn't answer right away. "Yes, I did. He had a story, a whole story. He said he'd moved on, that you'd been gone a long time. I couldn't hold back anymore. And the boy? He's Daniel's." She nodded slowly. "His name is Eli. He's 5. My stomach turned. "I want proof," I said. She didn't argue. She disappeared into the house for a few minutes, then returned holding a phone and a USB stick. "Here," she said. "These are birthday videos, family trips. Daniel was here. Every month. He bought Eli toys, read him bedtime stories. He helped build this life." I watched one video right there. Daniel was singing happy birthday to Eli, lifting him up, kissing his cheek, smiling like the proudest dad in the world. The warmth in his eyes wasn't fake. It was real. The man in that video loved that child. I shoved the phone back into her hand. "He told me you didn't exist. He lied to both of us." Maya looked stunned. "I didn't know. I swear. I thought you were gone." I couldn't take any more. I turned and walked out. But as I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, something started to settle in my chest, something cold. What if he really did love her? What if I was never the real wife? What if I was just the one who made his life look good on paper, while she had his heart? I didn't know what to believe anymore. I only knew one thing. Daniel had been living a double life, and somehow both of us had been fooled. Back home, I sat on the floor of our bedroom, surrounded by Daniel's old paperwork. His briefcase, his desk drawer, even the shoeboxes he kept tucked in the back of the closet. I needed to know the full truth now. I needed to see it in black and white. At first, it was just the usual. Receipts, business cards, some old birthday cards. But then I found a manila envelope stuffed behind the drawer. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. My hands shook as I flipped through them. There were bank statements from an account I didn't recognize, under his name, but at a different bank than the one we used together. The balance was in the tens of thousands. And then there were the withdrawals, regular ones, some marked under a woman's name I didn't know at first. Lindsay Green. Green. I froze. That was Maya's last name. Lindsay, it must be her sister. I kept digging, and with every paper I touched, my heart sank further. He had used our joint account to move money over time, bit by bit, not enough for me to notice, into this private account. From there, he wired funds monthly to Lindsay, thousands at a time. There were also property records. He hadn't just rented the farmhouse, he paid off, under a shell company I'd never heard of, but the signature was his. He used my money, my savings, my inheritance, the nest egg I brought into this marriage, to build a life with another woman and their child. It felt like a second death, but the worst came last. Tucked in the same envelope was a legal document, unsigned but nearly finalized, a new will. I stared at it for a long time before reading. In it, Daniel left everything to Maya and Eli. The house, the accounts, even the business he ran. I wasn't mentioned once. It was like I never existed. The only reason the will wasn't active was because he hadn't signed it yet. His accident, his death, it had stopped him just short. The cruelty of it all hit me like a punch to the chest. He had planned to erase me, not just emotionally, but legally. Quietly, carefully, all while sleeping beside me, calling me his wife, eating my food, living in my home. He would have left me with nothing. No home, no explanation, no dignity. I sat there for hours, unable to move, just staring at the papers. The betrayal was so deep, I couldn't even cry. I wasn't sure if I was more heartbroken or humiliated. But one thing had become clear. Daniel didn't just lie. He planned it. Every step. And if he were alive, I would have lost everything. Only now I had the power. And I was going to decide what came next. I stared at the coroner's report for the 5th time that week. I had read it before, right after Daniel's death, but I'd been too numb to notice anything odd. Now, with everything I'd discovered, Maya, Eli, the secret money, the new will, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. According to the report, Daniel had fallen off a ladder at a construction site he was overseeing. It said it was a simple accident, a misstep, but something about the wording felt off now. There were no photos, No detailed explanation, just vague notes. One line stood out: no witnesses present at time of fall. But that didn't make sense. Daniel was never alone at job sites. He always had workers around. I remembered him complaining once about how hard it was to find reliable help because they're always standing around when I need them working. So I drove to the site. It was an empty lot now. The house they were building was halfway done, just a wooden frame with exposed beams. I found a man working near the back, sorting tools. I recognized him from the funeral. His name was Rick. Quiet, polite. He'd worked with Daniel for years. He looked surprised to see me. I just had a few questions, I said, trying to sound calm. About what happened. He hesitated, then nodded. Sure. I asked him about that day. What time it happened. Who was there? At first, he stuck to the story. Daniel was up the ladder. Must have lost his balance. Hit his head on the way down. But the report said no one saw it happen. Rick avoided my eyes. Yeah. I mean, we were all inside when it happened. Heard the thud. Came running. I crossed my arms. Rick, please. I need to know. Was someone with him before the fall? He glanced around the site, then lowered his voice. Look, I don't want any trouble. But yeah, he was talking to someone. Loudly. Who? He sighed. Guy showed up in a black pickup. Real aggressive. They were arguing near Daniel's truck. Didn't hear the words, but it got heated. Then a few minutes later, we heard the fall. What did the guy look like? Tall. Muscular. Beard. Maybe late 20s. Wore a ball cap low over his eyes. Sounded familiar, though. My stomach dropped. Could it have been Maya's brother? His eyes widened just slightly, enough to give me my answer. Travis? He said, barely above a whisper. Yeah, now that you mention it, maybe. He's got a temper, right? Real protective. Daniel always said he didn't like him much. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. So Daniel didn't just fall. He might have been pushed. Or scared. Or threatened. And if Travis was there that day, why? Did he find out about the will? About Daniel's lies? I walked away from the site with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain now. Daniel's death may not have been an accident at all. I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by old photo albums, texts, and emails. Anything that could help me piece together the truth. My heart had been ripped apart so many times already, but I needed to understand when it all began. When the lies started. When I stopped being his wife and became a cover. I pulled out Daniel's old phone from the storage box I'd found in the closet. It hadn't been used in years, but luckily the charger still worked. When it powered on, I scrolled through his old messages, searching for anything that mentioned Maya. And then I found it. A message dated 2 years before we got married. It was from Daniel to Maya. Can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel alive again. My stomach dropped. I kept scrolling. There were photos of them at the lake. Smiling. Holding hands. Kissing. Dates marked clearly. Months before he even proposed to me. I flipped through our old engagement photos. The smile on his face. I thought it was love. But now I knew he was faking it. Behind those eyes, he was already living a different life. With someone else. The more I dug, the more disgusting it became. He had juggled us like some twisted magician. He took Maya on weekend trips while telling me he had business meetings out of town. He bought her gifts, called her baby, and sent her sweet voice notes while I sat at home wondering why he was distant. I thought Maya was the affair. But no, I was. He met Maya first. Fell for her first. I came later. I was the one he married, not for love, but for my last name, for the inheritance I got when my father passed. My family's money helped launch his business. He used me as a stepping stone, a safe, stable front. The woman who looked good on paper, who hosted parties, who paid the bills. And with that money, he built their life. The farmhouse. The secret account. The child. It all made sense now. Why he never wanted kids with me. Why he avoided talking about our future. Why he always kept part of himself locked away. Because he had already given it to someone else. I used to think I was Daniel's partner. His person. But now, looking through these texts and old photos, I realized something far worse. I had been his mask. He kept me polished and presentable, like a trophy wife he could show off to investors and clients. But his heart, that was never mine. And the thing that cut deepest? He never even looked guilty. He smiled in those pictures with Maya like a man who had everything he wanted. And all that time, I was right there, blind, loyal, and completely replaceable. The affair didn't ruin our marriage. It was our marriage. I just hadn't known it yet. I hadn't spoken to Evelyn, Daniel's mother, since the funeral. We were never close, not really. She was polite, cold, always kept me at arm's length. I thought it was just her personality, distant, proud. But now, after everything I'd uncovered, I couldn't stop wondering how much she knew. So I called her, asked if I could stop by. She said yes, though her voice was flat, as always. Her house looked exactly the same, neat, quiet, filled with family pictures. Daniel's childhood photos lined the hallway. But none of me. None of us. I noticed that for the first time. We sat in the living room. She offered me tea. I declined. I didn't come for comfort. I came for the truth. I need to ask you something, I said. And I want a straight answer. She nodded, her expression unreadable. Did you know about Maya? About Eli? There was a long pause. Then she set her cup down and looked straight at me. Yes, she said. Just like that. My heart sank. For how long? Almost 6 years, she replied softly. I stared at her, stunned. You knew your son had a mistress? A child? And you said nothing? She folded her hands in her lap. It wasn't my place. Wasn't your place? My voice cracked. I was his wife, Evelyn. I had a right to know. She didn't flinch. And what would you have done with that information? Left him? Thrown it all away? I stood up, shaking. You watched me sit at family dinners. You hugged me at holidays. And all the while, you knew he was lying to me. Her face hardened. Daniel deserved to be happy. He found that with Maya. You were always distant, cold, focused on business, on appearances. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So this was my fault. I'm not saying that, she said. But Maya gave him something you never did, warmth, softness, a child. My knees felt weak. I sat back down, unable to stand under the weight of her word. You protected him, I whispered. You helped him live that lie. I protected my son, she said. He wasn't perfect, but he loved that boy. He loved Maya. Maybe not the way you wanted, but love is complicated. Complicated. That's what she called betrayal. I left without another word. Drove home in silence. Her words echoed in my mind, louder than ever. You were always too cold for him. She had judged me quietly for years. And now I realized everyone around Daniel had helped him build this double life. They turned a blind eye. They made excuses. They whispered behind my back. Maya didn't just take my husband. They all handed him to her. And I had been the only one left in the dark. The fool dressed in white, smiling at a wedding built on lies. I sat across from my lawyer. The unsigned will spread out on his desk like a final slap from the grave. My stomach churned just looking at Daniel's name printed at the top. It was real. Official. Almost done. But not quite. It's valid in form, my lawyer explained. But without his signature, it's nothing. Legally, it doesn't exist. I nodded slowly, barely hearing him. My thoughts were spinning. This new will, one I had found buried in Daniel's secret documents, left everything to Maya and Eli. The house, the business, the savings, even the trust my father had set up for our future family. Every bit of it had been ready to change hands. He had nearly erased me, but he ran out of time. Because he never signed it, the previous will still stood, the one Daniel had filed years ago, right after our wedding. That one left everything to me. All of it. The farmhouse, the secret bank account, the company, even the land Daniel had bought in Eli's name. I expected to feel relief, victory, power, but all I felt was numb. I want to begin the transfer, I said, voice low. My lawyer nodded. It'll take a few weeks, but yes. As his legal widow and sole heir, it all becomes yours. A few days later, I drove to the farmhouse one last time. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. Maya was standing inside, holding Eli in her arms, looking through the window when I pulled up. I stayed in the car, watching her expression change from confusion to realization to something like fear. She came outside slowly. What do you want? I rolled the window down, handed her the envelope. This is your notice, I said. You and Eli have 30 days to vacate. The property is now under my name. I'm selling it. Her eyes filled with panic. You can't do this. This was his home too, our home. No, Maya, I said flatly. It was my house, my money, my name, and you were never his wife. She held Eli tighter. He loved us. He was going to change the will. You know that. But he didn't, I replied. And that's not my problem. I drove away before she could respond. I didn't want to see her cry. I didn't want to see Eli's confused little face. None of this was his fault. But I couldn't carry the weight of Daniel's lies anymore. Back at the lawyer's office, I signed the final papers. Ownership transferred. Accounts locked down. Trust restructured. Everything that Daniel had tried to take from me, his silence, his betrayal, his planned erasure, I now controlled. I looked at the farmhouse deed one last time before filing it away. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Cold. Legal. Complete. And finally, it was mine. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't show up at Maya's door with anger in my fists or tears in my eyes. No, that wasn't my style anymore. I'd already played the part of the grieving widow, the betrayed wife, the forgotten fool. Now, I was done playing. I was going to end this my way. The first step was the farmhouse. I hired a real estate agent, had it appraised, and listed it within a week. The demand was high, secluded, charming, good land. It sold faster than I expected. I never set foot inside again. The eviction notice I gave Maya was formal and cold. No arguments. No extensions. 30 days. After that, the locks would be changed. She didn't call. She didn't text. I think she finally understood. There was no negotiating with me now. Next was the trust. Daniel had quietly started one in Eli's name, using money pulled from our accounts. It was generous, meant to support his secret son's future. But now, with me as the legal heir, I had the power to restructure it. And I did. I placed the trust into a legally monitored account, managed by a financial guardian. The money was protected, but only for Eli. Maya couldn't touch it unless I gave written consent. It was airtight. If she tried to access it for herself, she'd be blocked at every turn. I didn't want the boy to suffer. He didn't ask for this life, for these lies. But I wasn't going to reward the woman who helped destroy mine. Then came the final move, the one I had saved like a glass of cold wine. I had found an old video months ago while cleaning out Daniel's thing. It was from our second wedding anniversary. He had surprised me with candles, flowers, and a heartfelt message. In the video, he looked into the camera and said, "No matter where life takes us, you'll always be the love of my life, Sarah. I'm so lucky to have you." I had almost deleted it, but now I uploaded it, compressed the file, and emailed it to Maya. No message, no subject line, just the video. She would open it, expecting something cruel or threatening. But what she'd get instead was Daniel, smiling, soft, looking straight into the lens, telling another woman that she was his forever. The same man who told Maya I was dead. The same man who promised her the world while wearing a wedding ring he never took off. It was petty. It was cold. But it was mine. For once, I didn't feel guilty. Not for the house. Not for the trust. Not for the look I imagined on Maya's face as she watched that video. She had lived in my shadow for years, pretending it didn't exist. Now she would live in mine again, knowing I had the last word, the last laugh, and everything he tried to leave behind. And I wouldn't give a single piece of it back. I didn't pack much. Just a suitcase, some old photos, and a folded letter I had rewritten a dozen times. It wasn't for Maya. Not for Evelyn. Not for Daniel. It was for Eli. The boy had his father's eyes, haunting, curious, too knowing for someone so young. He didn't ask to be born into a life of lies. He didn't choose parents who treated truth like something to bury. And I didn't want him growing up only hearing one side of the story. So I wrote him a letter. Not to turn him against his mother. Not to make him pity me. But because he deserved the truth. A clean version. One not warped by pain or blame. Dear Eli, if you're reading this, it means you're old enough now to ask questions. And I want you to know, you were never the mistake. You were the only innocent in all of this. I told him how I met Daniel. How I loved him deeply. How I believed in a version of him that didn't exist. I told him about the farmhouse, the secrets, the shock of discovering an entire life I never knew. I told him I cried. A lot. But I also wrote that he was the best part of Daniel that was left behind. I'm not writing to make you choose sides. I just want you to know that even though your father betrayed me, I don't blame you for any of it. You deserved better parents. We all did. I didn't lie in the letter, but I didn't bleed onto the page either. I wanted Eli to read it someday and understand that grown-ups make mistakes. Terrible one. But it doesn't mean everything was fake. I told him his father loved him in the way he could. That he laughed in those birthday videos. That he held him close. Your father wanted to give you everything. He just forgot the cost of the things he stole. I ended it simply. One day, maybe you'll want to know who I really was. If that day ever comes, I hope you find this and know that somewhere in the story, you mattered. I left the letter with my lawyer, sealed, with instructions to deliver it when Eli turned 18. And then I left town. No dramatic goodbyes. No speeches. Just the sound of gravel under my tires as I drove past the fields, past the farmhouse that was no longer mine, and toward a life that had space for truth. I wasn't healed. Not even close. But I was no longer waiting for apologies. No longer holding on to lies. No longer someone's second choice. Just Sarah Dawson. Finally free. What would you have done if you were in Sarah's shoes? Walked away for good, or tried to make peace with the past? I'd really like to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.